Hey guys, MBSC1 again. And after regionals on day 2, there was a league challenge with about 34 people there, and I decided that I wanted to play Trevenant Excelgor because it was expanded. I used that deck a lot before it was rotated, so I thought I would give it another go. And this is the list that I used. I know I only used it for one day, but I had tested this list a lot back when it was legal. And so Alright, so as usual, we'll start off with the Pokemon. This is my exact list. I actually changed a couple cards after I got back, but this is just my straight exact list. I'll tell you guys what I would change. But 3 Trevenant, I like that a lot. 3 seems to be the perfect number for me. I don't really think you need the 4th. 4th just seems like a waste of time, because once you get Trevenant out, you're probably locking your opponent anyway, so they can't really do damage to it. But sometimes they aren't, so I don't think 2 is enough. So yeah, 3 seemed to just be a good compromise, a good in-between. Then I have 4 Phantump. I actually cut this down to 3 once I got back and out of the tournament, but 4 was good just for that added consistency. I went down to 3 because I added in Trump Card and I needed room for catchers. But 4 is good. If you can fit 4, 4 is nice. Then for the Excelgor line, we just run 2. I upped this to 3 when I got back. And then 3 Shelmet. The reason I upped it to 3 Excelgor when I got back is because I wanted to cut 1 Mew for the 3rd Excelgor, which is kind of the same thing. They both essentially get the same effect. It's just with the 3rd Excelgor, I can use Silver Bangle with it more. And I also noticed that whenever I used Mew, I was hitting a lot of metal Pokemon for less damage because of the resistance, which doesn't matter as much, but that was just another contributing factor. And then the other thing is also because the 3rd Excelgor just makes it so that you get the Excelgor out more consistently, because you can't really use Mew without Excelgor in play. So I just thought you can't really have a second Mew without a 3rd Excelgor. So yeah, I just put in the 3rd Excelgor and took out the second Mew. Sorry if that doesn't make sense, but I tried to explain it. Yeah, so either way, they're both good, but I prefer the 3rd Excelgor. Then 2 Dusknoir. Sometimes people run 1, but I think 2 is good just for consistency. This list is just aiming for a lot of consistency without any real techs. So yeah, just 2 Dusknoir. 2 Dusclops. This is just to keep the line pretty thick. 1 definitely is enough, especially if you're running 2 Dusknoir, because that wouldn't make any sense. I thought about putting in a rare candy, but in reality it's not very consistent, so I think 2 Dusclops is the way to go. And then 2 Duskull. You could even put in a 3rd. A 3rd would be nice, but I think 2 is probably enough. 3 would be helpful against things like Frisian Genesect, but it doesn't really matter because that's an auto loss anyway. Then 2 Mew, like I said, you can cut that for the 3rd Excelgor if you want. And then 1 Sigilith. This helps a lot against Metal and decks that run Keldeo if they have Rush and Retreat, and you can't stop them from rushing and retreating, then Sigilith is going to help a lot so that you can wall damage. Because even against those decks that have a Keldeo that's going to rush and retreat for a while, you can still beat it because you can Lysander it up and then use Excelgor to deck and cover, and then if you have a Bangle on it, it one-shots Keldeo. I did that against a Ray Eels deck. I put down Shelmet on the first turn, then the second turn I played down Excelgor, attached Double Colorless and a Silver Bangle, and then Lysandered up the Keldeo and one-shotted it, and then I just pretty much took over the game from there. So, yeah, Sigilith helps when you can't do that, I guess. It also helps early game when you don't have Trevenant out. And that's all of the Pokemon for the deck. Like I said, no techs really, except if you count the Sigilith. I guess that's a little bit of a tech. Just straight up consistency. For stadiums, this is probably pretty obvious, that 3 Tropical Beach. I guess some people run 2. I think that's kind of weird. 3 seems to be really good for me. I use it outside of like the beginning, sometimes too. You know, if I stumble and I can't really get off a deck and cover, I'll beach. 3's just really good. It helps a lot. It also helps as a counter stadium. I guess I went against 2 metal decks at that league challenge. By the way, my ending record was 3 wins and 2 ties. I played against 2 metal decks, which would seem like an auto loss because they have Aegislash and Steel Shelter, but I was able to counter Steel Shelter with Tropical Beach, which helped a lot. And then Aegislash I just knocked out with Poison, believe it or not. Yeah, so those were my one of those was a win, one of those was a loss. But anyway, that's beside the point. Tropical Beach is just really strong. 3 is very consistent for early game, and I would not dip below 3 pretty much ever. I think 3 is really good. 4N, N is extremely good in this deck. I mean, it's good in every deck, but even more so in this deck because you can control how many prizes you've taken with Dusknoir. So you can pretty much be ending for 6 until like the last couple turns most of the time. So N is extremely good. This is the most controversial thing about my list, I think. A lot of people don't like this, but I love it. I run 4 Colress. Now that might seem ridiculous to you, but this deck runs 8 Pokemon search cards. And plus, besides that, I have 12 basics besides that. So I have a high count of basics and 4 level balls, and then 2 ultra balls, and then 2 Pokemon communication. So I'm going to get a lot of basics down turn 1 pretty much every game. I have Colress for like 7 cards turn 1 with this deck. Colress is almost always good. Sometimes I'll start with Colress and wish it was something else, but that only happens maybe like 1 in 4 times. And that might sound like a lot, but when you have Tropical Beach, and you can still set up even with that, you know, low count Colress draw, it really doesn't hurt that bad early game. It hurts a little bit sometimes though. And then there's 2 Sycamore. You can't really, I guess you can go above 2 Sycamore if you want, but if you do that, then you risk discarding Stage 1 and Stage 2 Pokemon when you don't have the basic out, so you have to discard Pokemon that you don't want to more of the time. I think 2 is a good count. 3 could even work if you're on Trump Card, which I do suggest actually. I didn't have Trump Card in this list, but I did end up putting it in later. So yeah, I think 2 Colress is good. You could up it to 3 if you want, maybe cut a Colress for a 3rd one, but I like it like this. 3 Reverse Seeker, I kept that the same. 3 Reverse Seeker is very good. I like to have 4 actually, but I cannot really fit it, so 3 it is. Then 2 Lysander. This is one of the things I changed when after I played in that League Challenge. I cut one of these Lysanders for a Pokemon catcher, and the problem with Lysander in this deck is that you really need to be drawing cards every turn. You can't really skip a turn of that because you need to keep deck and covering and chorusing for lots of cards so that you can draw the Double Colorless and the Exceligor and the Shelmet and all that stuff. So you can't really waste a turn using Lysander to bring something up. You really just need to use Catcher and hope that you hit the heads. So instead of running this Lysander, I took it out, and then I took out some other stuff and put in 2 Catchers, and I kept 1 Lysander. And the 1 Lysander I kept in just because sometimes you just need to guarantee yourself that you're going to hit it. You can't risk the coin flip. But yeah, if you don't like the Catcher thing, you could go with 2 Lysander instead. But as someone who's used this deck a lot in the past and using it again now, I think Catcher is definitely the way to go. And that is it for the support line. Actually, in total, if you count up all the draw, I actually have 16. 3, 5, plus 4 is 9, plus 4 is 13, and then 3 more is 16. So I actually have 16 draw support, which is a lot for a deck. And the reason I have so much is because I don't have a Musharna line, or an Electrode line, or a Delphox line. I don't have any other draw, so the 4 Colress is kind of how I draw so many cards to make sure I can keep deck and covering every turn. Then for items, we have 1 Computer Search, just helps consistency to make sure that you can deck and cover every turn. Super good. I would not change it out for anything else, except for maybe Dowsing Machine, which is what I did change it for. So after the tournament, I switched Computer Search out for Dowsing because this deck has trouble with Float Stones. And sometimes you need to get other things back like beaches and draw support. So yeah, you can do Computer Search or Dowsing. I'm actually not sure which one's better, but right now my list has Dowsing, but for the LC I did use Computer Search. 1 Silver Bangle, this is mostly there so you can Lysander up Keldeo and then one-shot it with Exceligor. It also accelerates the amount of damage you can do if you have this on Exceligor. Just that extra 30 helps so that you can win more quickly because this deck is very slow. Those 2 ties were both because I just couldn't play fast enough to get the game done in the 30-minute time limit. But I'm sure I would have won both of those games had I had 10 more minutes or so, or 5 more minutes. Actually, one of the games I just needed 1 more turn and I would have won. So yeah, Bangle just helps with that a little bit. And then Town Map, this is because you really need to have all the Double Colorless energy in your deck. It's also really good with Dusknoir because if you have your prizes flipped over, and you can just take prizes whenever you want with Dusknoir. If you miss like a Double Colorless or something like that off a Chorus, or whatever supporter you play, then you can move the damage around with Chorus and then draw the supporter, the card you need off the prizes to keep the lock going. So Tom is extremely good in this deck. I don't think I would ever take it out. One Sacred Ash, I didn't have Lysander's trump card in this list, I just had the Sacred Ash. So this is just to recover Pokemon. Sacred Ash is better than Super Rod in this deck because you don't run any basic energy, so that's basically why. Very helpful. One Sterling Megaphone. Yes, your opponent can't play items, but if they get an item down before you can use Forest Cursed with Trevenant, then you need to have Megaphone to get it off later. Like I said, it's just really important to have no item on that Keldeo, so if they do get it down, the Floatstone on the Keldeo before you can use Trevenant, then you need to be able to Megaphone it off. I'd even like to have a second one, I just really can't fit a second one right now. And then 4 Floatstone. I'd like to run 5 sometimes, but 4 is all I can really fit. There was a time when I ran out of Floatstones against one of my opponents. I still ended up tying, not winning, but tying. But yeah, it really hurts because if you run out of Floatstone, they Lysander up a Dusknoir, then you really just either tie or lose that game. And that's what happened to me. That's why I tied. So yeah, I wouldn't really cut this down to less than 4 unless you have Trump Card and Dowsing Machine, which is what my new list does have. I cut one out and I have Trump Card and Dowsing Machine. So yeah, that's kind of your 2 options there. Then 4 Level Ball, excuse me. This is just so that you can get all of your Pokemon out as early as you can. You can get so many things out with Level Ball. You can get Sigilyph, Phantom, you can get Exceligor, you can get Shelmet, you can get Dusclops, and you can get Duskull, all with Level Ball. So you can get pretty much almost all of your Pokemon out of this deck besides Trevenant, Dusknoir, and Mew. So it's extremely powerful in this deck. Yeah, I like it a lot. And then, yeah, and just 4 is just so you have that set up early game. Some people like Fan Club instead. I really hate Fan Club. It's useless after, like, turn 2, so that's why I don't run it. I really hate Fan Club. 2 Pokemon Communication. This deck runs like 20 Pokemon, so it works really well. In case you don't know what it does, it's kind of a card that's only used in Expanded because it's out of format right now, but it says reveal a Pokemon in your hand and put it on top of your deck. If you do, search your deck for a Pokemon, reveal it, and put it into your hand. So sometimes you'll be in a situation where you have like Trevenant in your hand, but you really don't need one, so you play Pokemon Communication, put it back, and get something like a Duskull or something like that so you can keep setting up, or maybe even a Dusknoir or something like that. But basically it just conserves cards so that you don't have to discard as much stuff like you would have to do with Ultra Ball. And the 2 Ultra Ball are just there so that you can thin out some cards sometimes, or just grab anything. It's really important to be able to grab anything sometimes, mainly evolution Pokemon. And you could even take these out for Evo Sodas if you really want. Evo Soda is good in this deck. You could run 1, or maybe even 2 if you want, but I think Ultra Ball is just really good so that you can have that consistency to grab anything. But yeah, that's the items, excuse me. And then the energy line is really complicated. I mean, it's really crazy. So many of them. You run an entire 4 double colorless energy. So that's it for the energy. I mean, running any less than 4 is just idiotic, because you need a deck and cover every turn, so that's pretty standard with this deck. So that's about it for this list, guys. Before I go, I just want to make a couple shout-outs to my friend Tyler. I met him at this Regionals. He's a subscriber of mine and met me through my YouTube videos, which I thought was pretty cool, so I said I'd give him a shout-out for his channel. You guys go check out xmadness11, that's his channel. He puts out really good videos. He's a great guy. I met him in person. He's a really cool guy. And then also to this other guy, Blood Oath. I told him I would give him a shout out like months ago, and I just kept forgetting to. So if you're watching this, there you go. So that's about it, guys. Like if you like the video, comment if you want to tell me something, and subscribe for more.